Wow. I started when I was 4.5 up in Auburn, so it's now been 52 years. Way too long and way too broke. I started on piccolo because my fingers were too small, and then I went to piano when I was 5 and added flute when I was 6, and then added drums when I was 7, and then started singing when I was 10 and writing songs. So I suppose I align with what Michael says, that something comes from the inside and you try and get it outside. And this is the challenge in life as we get older, as we know what's inside, and that's our passion. We try and move it to the outside and see what value it has and how we can make a living doing something that we like to do. And that really becomes your bottom line today. So I'm happy to be here, but I certainly blame my mom and dad for giving me music lessons for a long time and getting my degrees in music. But now it's all about doing business and a career and trying to sum up everything as life takes its turns and changes.
I was, I don't want to say I was raised in a music family, because I wasn't. There was a lot of music in my family, but I came from a family that believed in a classical education, which is to say you studied the arts, you studied literature, you studied music, you pursued athletics. And so we were expected to study an instrument. My aunts and uncles all had taken piano lessons and played piano or violin, like my father played the baritone horn, which is also known as the euphonium, in the marching band, and it was just like it was part of their upbringing. So we were expected to take music lessons. I had an affinity for the piano from the time I was a toddler. I can remember going to visit my father's family, houses, and if I could see a piano coming through the front door, I would be running towards the piano just to bang on it. And so I was principally self-taught, and I did take some piano lessons, but I studied violin for 9 years, 7 years. I played viola for 9 years. When I was in high school, my father had this fantasy of me being him and playing in the marching band, so I picked up the euphonium and played that too. And all along, I realized that just like, I'm sorry, the gentleman down there, Michael, there was this music inside of me that wanted to come out, and I could literally sit down at the piano and write a big pop song in half an hour.
Yep.
And it made me very popular. And I liked that. And so when I got to college, I tried to put it down, but it kept on following me. And I was in class studying economics and corporate finance and how to take over the world in investment banking. And at night I was in the coffee houses playing the Fender Rhodes and performing with poets and just being steeped in music and music culture. So I knew at some point that my pursuit of my own musical career was either, meaning as a musician, was either going to be laid down or it was going to take front and center. And somehow or another I was able to find a hybrid. And I was very thankful that somebody told me that there was this role in the music industry called product manager, which is like the quarterback on the marketing team at a record company, and they basically come up with the plan and call the shots as to how a record is going to be released, how an artist is going to be marketed. And I said, well, it's a leadership role, and it allows you to be creative, and it requires an appreciation for all different kinds of music and an ear for what's a hit or what's a dud. And I said, I think I can do that. And fortunately, it worked. So that's what inspired me.
Well, I've always been involved in chorus in high school and middle school and that sort of thing. Okay. Is that the fire drill?
Keep going.
No? Okay. So I've always been involved in chorus, and when I went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to pursue law because my family always told me I should do something very practical. But I was very more, creative and right-brained. So I was, playing around in college and pursuing arts and pursuing law, and then I ended up going karaoke with my friends. So I don't know if you guys have all karaoke'd, but it's a really fun way to try performing in front of people. And I realized when I sang karaoke, especially the ballads where it was really quiet, that everybody would stop and stare at me singing. So I decided, well, that might be really cool to start writing songs. And I always wrote poetry, but I never knew how to write a song. I had like 10 pages of lyrics, and you can't do that in a song. So I worked with a producer who taught me how to condense a song and work about song structure and how to create a song. So it's kind of a process, but I've always loved music.
Kind of like what I said earlier, I wanted to be the next Stevie Wonder, so, music was always in my DNA, but just to kind of alter Eric's question a little bit, what inspired me to be in the music business? One thing about the music business, with the exception maybe of a few front office jobs, it's not one of those types of careers where you can just go in and ask, are y'all hiring? Can I fill out an application? It's a very relationship-oriented type of business. I remember when I first got in, someone said, don't burn bridges in this business, and I was like, huh, what does that mean? It's about relationships and maintaining good relationships with people. You guys are coming up in a very fascinating time. You have social networking where you can be in St. Louis or Montana, and you can be corresponding with someone who lives in Los Angeles or Atlanta or New York, which are Nashville, which are music industry hubs. We didn't have that when I first came in. So relationships, going to conferences, going to listening parties, trying to get on those VIP lists to be at various events, those were very important parts, very important components to getting ahead in the business. Like I said, I started off in a record store, and I worked there, the warehouse chain, for about 8 years, and I went to a music magazine called Urban Network, and I was the vice president managing editor there. So I got a chance to interview from Whitney Houston to Stevie Wonder, Patti LaBelle, Brian McKnight, John Legend. Just so many artists over the years. We also put on music conferences. So I was responsible for bringing in thousands of people from the music industry. And then lastly, I also do media coaching, which is what I call part of the reinvention of myself.
Well, looks like we got 15 minutes to tell about the entire music industry. And obviously looks like if you guys are really liking this a lot, we should have a series 2 where we have some more time for our proper content. So what can we talk about in 15 minutes except what's for lunch? Let me pose, I had specifically narrowed it down to 4 questions. If you guys can be so-called brief, we might be able to get through maybe 3, and then we'll have a closing content. So I'm going to focus this one towards Thornell and Dan. It's question number 8, and obviously it has to do with record label changes. The question reads, in the wake of major label change and fallout, specifically EMI and Warner Music Group, how should today's artists approach what record labels will do today and in the future? And we're talking about what would a record label contract do for you today, and with so many changes happening. Let's go right to Thornell.
Well, being that I've done the record label roundtable for so long, I think, and have seen the changes over the last 20 years, the first thing I would say is that today's marketplace is defined by DIY, do it yourself. The technology has gotten to the place now where you can make a record in your bedroom, align yourself with an aggregator that's a company that takes a whole bunch of different music from different people and then is responsible for putting it onto what are called the DSPs, the digital storefronts, iTunes, Rhapsody, etc., etc., etc. And once it's in cyberspace, then you can then market your own record through social media, whether it be Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or whatever it is that you like to use. And what record companies have done in the past is they've identified talent, taken that talent and partnered it with other talented people, whether it's songwriters, producers, etc., and created this record, this physical record. Then they have, put resources behind exciting the industry around this artist, as well as exciting the consumers around this artist through various means, principally radio, and then put records into the stores, and then drove those same consumers that they created awareness with to the record stores to be able to buy these records. Nowadays, what a major record company is doing is leveraging the work that you've already done to take it to the next level. So for an aspiring artist or aspiring producer or aspiring songwriter, it's about DIY. It's about taking what you have right now and maximizing it and putting it out there and creating your own buzz through social media and through whatever. I mean, if you performing, whatever it is that you can do to create a fan base for yourself and create some buzz around, whether it's the song, or whether it's the artist, or whether it's the dope production. That's what you have to do, because that's what the industry is doing now. It's no longer about creating from scratch. Very few artists are created from scratch from out in the major record company labels at this point.
Are you able to protect your product?
Well, yes, you are able to protect your product.
Talk about that next.
Okay. Well, okay, so they got it all plotted out. But yes, there are things that you have to do in order to be able to protect yourself in terms of copyrights and being able to preserve your income stream. So, for instance, she creates a song in her bedroom, she puts it up on iTunes, it becomes very popular, but then somebody else comes along and wants to put it in a commercial. Well, who actually makes the money? Because in the end, this is not show friends, this is show business. This is the music business. We're about making money from this creative endeavor, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I 100% agree with everything Thornell said. The thing about the music industry is to remember, everybody wants to get on the train that's up and running. So there's a lot of backstory with the artists that you're seeing right now that you guys don't know about, but we know about because we're on the other side of the business. So I think about, there's an artist I know named Jason Reeves who got signed to Warner Brothers last year. Jason co-wrote a lot of songs with Colby Calais. You guys know Colby? You hip to Colby? Very cool. She's 9 feet tall, but she's very cool. Jason had done 4 independent records, all on his own. All got that thing up and running. And one of the things that the industry always wants to see is who is connected with a project. So when I get a CD, say, or I find something that says an artist has written all his own songs, done all his own artwork, played all the instruments himself, done all this. Sometimes what the artist thinks is they're transmitting to me that they're very self-sufficient. But what I'm seeing is that they must be an insufferable prick that nobody wants to work with. You know what I'm saying? So we always want to see who's connected to projects that we're doing. And everything comes out of a certain scene. The music business is very tribal, and so if you ask an artist who they want their music to appeal to and they say everybody, that's not the right answer. Because music shouldn't appeal to everybody. In other words, do you want to listen to the same music your parents listen to? Nuh-uh, exactly. So we need to see specificity there. We need to see what happens in a long career is that people become involved in other parts of the business, So today's artists that are getting over are very hip to social mediums. They're very hip to doing certain things. They're very hip to staying in touch with their fans and staying out there and doing YouTube videos and communicating directly with the fans. That's a huge part of what has to happen. And then the other reality is, it's sad but true, the artist is the most disposable part of the equation.